Good morning, everyone. This morning we are continuing with Merging with Śiva, chapter 44, entitled Darshan, Grace of the Guru from the 1972 Master Course. Lesson 304, The Scent of a Rose. If you were to travel through India on a spiritual pilgrimage, you would undoubtedly hear much about the Sanskrit word darshan. The religious leaders of the Orient are categorized according to the darshan they give, for there are various kinds of darshan. Darshan is the vibration that emanates from the illumined soul as a result of his inner attainment, be he a yogi, pandit, swāmī, guru, or a ṛishi. Usually the yogi, swāmī, saint, or sage attracts his following not so much by what he says as by the darshan he radiates. Hindus travel for miles to receive the darshan of an illumined soul established in his enlightenment. Perhaps he doesn't even speak to them. Perhaps he scolds some of them. Perhaps he gives the most inspired of talks to them. In any case, they feel the darshan flooding out from him. A great soul is always giving darshan. The Hindus believe that the darshan coming from a great soul helps them in their evolution, changes patterns in their lives by cleaning up areas of their subconscious mind that they could not possibly have done for themselves. They further believe that if his darshan is strong enough, if they are in tune with him enough, by its power the kundalini force can be stimulated enough that they can really begin to meditate. This is called the grace of the Guru. The ability for one to meditate comes from this grace. You must have it before you can begin to meditate, or you must do severe austerities by yourself instead. Darshan is not well understood in the West because the West is outwardly refined, but not necessarily inwardly refined. The peoples of the Orient, by their heritage, are inwardly sensitive enough to understand and appreciate darshan. Darshan and the unfolding soul on the path are like the rose. When the rose is a bud, it does not give forth a perfume. Unfoldment is just beginning. We admire the beauty of the bud, the stem, and the thorns. We are aware that it has the potential of a magnificent flower. In the same way, we appreciate a beautiful soul who comes along, seeing in him the potential of a spiritual mission in this life. In the life of a bud, nothing happens until unfoldment begins. The same is true for the fine soul. It happens occasionally that someone comes along and picks the bud. This means the fine soul is in the wrong company. Now neither the bud nor the soul can unfold. But when they are well protected in a garden or ashrama by a careful gardener or guru, the bud and the soul unfold beautifully. With just their first little opening to the world, they begin to see the light of the outer and inner sun shining down into the core of their being. It is still too early, of course, for the rose to have a noticeable fragrance, or the soul a darshan. We might appreciate them closely, but we would detect little in this early and delicate stages of unfolding. At this time, the unfolding soul might say, I can see the light in my head and in my body. And the sun's rays keep pouring into the rose, penetrating into the stem and as deep as the roots. It is feeling stronger and unfolding more and more. If no one picks it because of its unfolding beauty, the rose continues to unfold until it opens into all its glory. Then a wondrous thing happens. The delicate perfume of the rose fills the air day and night. It is the darshan of the rose. To some people, the bouquet of the rose is very strong. To others, it is rather weak. Is the emanation of the rose stronger at one time than another? No, it is always the same. It goes on and on and on, maturing all the while into a deeper, richer, more potent scent. Soon it is filling the entire garden. But to the one who comes into the garden with a stuffy nose, there is only the beauty of the flower to experience. In the same way, one who is closed on the inside of himself misses the darshan of the awakened soul. He sees in the greater soul just another ordinary person like himself. The darshan is there, but he is too negative to feel it. But the darshan permeates him just the same. He goes away from the garden not having smelled a rose, but carrying the perfume of the rose himself. If you stand away from the rose, you smell less of the fragrance. Bring yourself really close, and more of its strong and sweet scent will penetrate your body. Lesson 305, Sensitivity to Darshan. Darshan from a great soul, like the pollen of the flowers, can stimulate healthy sneezing and cleansing if one subconscious happens to be congested. Call it, if you like, an allergy to flowers. Some people have allergies to gurus too. The guru's darshan lifts repressed subconscious patterns that have been out of the flow of the cosmic pattern of regenerative life, bringing them up before one's conscious attention. Instead of feeling wonderful, the visitor to the garden feels miserable, as the fire is brought up from within, releasing his awareness to view the polluted state of the subconscious mind. Some people are more sensitive to fragrance than others. Others are so selfless and sensitive they can become the fragrance itself for a time. In such a person, the rose smells sweet through every pore of his body. He is not in the least aware of any subconscious congested area of the mind. He sits in the garden and goes deep into meditation on the subtle fragrance of the flowers. The same principle relates to the unfolded soul. Darshan pours forth from the unfolded soul just as fragrance flows from the rose, stronger at some times than at others, because some devotees are more in tune than others. For them, the room begins to ring and vibrate. Some people are so sensitive that when a great soul comes to the same town, they feel his presence. This shows their inner attunement to the constant flowing power of the darshan. Then we get a story. That last part there reminded me of a story in Guru Chronicles. Some people are so sensitive that when a great soul comes to the same town, they feel his presence. Oh, this is the story of Raja Yogi prostrates. There lived a Brahmin named Shankara Supayar, respectively known as Raja Yogi. Born in Jaffna as a young man, he had left home for South India on a spiritual quest. For years he performed sadhana and received training in philosophy and public speaking. He matured as a brilliant, highly respected orator on Saiva Siddhanta. At Hindu temples on special days after the pujas, speakers and musicians perform in the courtyard. Raja Yogi would speak at such occasions throughout South India, elucidating the fine points of Saivism, telling stories and explaining their meaning. People came from all over to hear his oration. In a dramatic yet simple style, he made the inner significance of Saivite worship available to those who had been following the rituals without much understanding. Sometime in the early 1920s, the prodigal son returned to Jaffna, where he was widely known and highly respected, even though he had not been home for years. Many Sri Lankans pilgrimaging through South India had heard him speak at the ancient stone temples. At last he was returning, a hero of sorts, to give a series of religious lectures. Raja Yogi landed by boat in Colombo, spent several weeks enthralling audiences in the capital, then set out for Jaffna by train. The whole community was excited. Such events rarely occurred in the quiet north. Representatives of the reception committee took the 8-hour train ride to Colombo to escort their celebrity home. The ladies decorated the train station in grand style for the reception, with thousands of flowers and palm leaves folded in decorative patterns. A new podium was built for the event, where dignitaries would give welcoming speeches, and the pandit would offer his first address to the people of Jaffna. Each important religious and social group, and there are many in this region, brought lavish garlands with which to honor him. The air was thick with incense and the redolent perfume of roses and jasmine. As his arrival time neared, more and more people crowded onto the platform. Meanwhile, on the train, Raja Yogi was conversing with his hosts, noting how good it felt to be home again. But when the train stopped at Kauai railway station, he suddenly fell silent, closed his eyes, and entered a deep, blissful state. His face glowed with contentment. After a few moments, he opened his eyes, clearly overwhelmed with his experience. The head of the entourage asked, "What happened? Are you all right?" Raja Yogi sighed. "I felt a great jyoti board at the last station. That light is pervading the train." He turned inward again, relishing that darshan for the rest of the trip. At the Pungankulam station, just before the Jaffna depot, he felt the jyoti leaving the train. He asked his hosts who it was. One looked out the window and, seeing Yogaswami walking away, pointed him out to the Raja Yogi, explaining, "He's just an ascetic who lives in a village near here." The train was ready to leave the station. Raja Yogi insisted on getting off then and there. No reception would hold him. This was what was important for his life right now. He had to meet the being whose spiritual illumination he had felt so palpably. His host stood confounded. Their duty was to get Raja Yogi to the grand reception, just a few kilometers away. Hundreds of people were waiting. They would be to blame if they were late or if anything went amiss. Raja Yogi understood their predicament, but still insisted on seeing Yogaswami. He urged, "Please just let me off the train. Simply postpone the reception until the evening when I am scheduled to speak. I will take the blame." His hosts were just as adamant, promising they would cut the reception short and personally take him to see Yogaswami immediately afterward. Raja Yogi relented as the train started up with a jerk and chugged forward to Jaffna. Now the men had pause for thought. Why was the famous Raja Yogi so enamored with Yogaswami? They had felt no special power from him all these years. To them, he was an enigmatic sadhu to be feared and avoided. Now here was Raja Yogi ready to dispense with all the honors of friends awaiting him for a moment with a stranger. The reception would be the finest Jaffna had held in decades, and he wanted to push it aside to see Yogaswami. As they pulled into the Jaffna station, the platform was overflowing with townfolk. Musicians were playing towel drums and the Nagaswara woodwind in a frenzy of festive rhythms. Raja Yogi was greeted in grand style. Garland after garland was placed on him, so many that they had to be removed quickly to make room for more. In keeping with their promise, his hosts arranged, against stern objections, to postpone the main part of the reception until that evening. Raja Yogi insisted they leave as quickly as possible. He gave a short, eloquent, and humorous talk that satisfied the crowd, apologized for curtailing the program, then set out by car with his hosts to find Yogaswami. They squeezed into one of Lanka's ubiquitous black ambassador sedans and headed for Kolumbuturai. Reaching Swami's hut, Raja Yogi, hands held together over his head in the highest form of namaskara, approached the sage and prostrated on the ground. He remained face down on the ground for a long time, then stood in speechless awe. Yogaswami greeted him warmly and offered a seat. After a few moments of intense silence, Raja Yogi spoke up. "I have never felt such a presence as I do at this moment." Yogaswami responded, "What you feel is within you. I am within you." They talked together and sat for a time in intimate quietude. Then Swami announced that it was time for Raja Yogi to go. Knowing that people would be curious, Swami advised that he not talk about their meeting. "Secret is sacred and sacred is secret. You are the only one. Know that by keeping a secret." That night, as he mixed with Jaffna citizens at the reception, Raja Yogi uttered nary a word of his encounter with Yogaswami. But everyone knew that's the way things are in Jaffna. His companions, unable to contain their enthusiasm, chattered about how the renowned pandit had recognized Yogaswami as his guru. This was a turning point. Others became aware of Swami's rare spirituality and began coming to him. Not in great numbers. He was too aloof, disengaged, and difficult to approach. He lived an austere, reclusive life, constantly immersed in tapas, consciously cutting away every thread of attachment so that he could soar to the apex of existence, beyond time, form, space, and any movement of the mind. Great story. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.